Pascal. You are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild, Haitian in the building, so original. Got the haters catching feelings. Get your hands up to the ceiling and keep them held high, cause St. Louis isn't ready. Forget about it, goodbye. Hold on, we just saying hi. Five somebody, rise up weekdays. Catch us live, somebody, let's go.
Good afternoon. Good evening and good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Pascal Show. Hope you guys all doing well out there. Hope this show finds you in great spirits, as it should. If not, hopefully you find a way to wake up on the better side of the bed tomorrow. But nonetheless, we are here to talk about some things that I have questions over. And it all revolves around our young man, our friend, Sebastian Rogers, who, of course, we are trying to find as quickly as we can. It's been well over 80 days since we've seen this young man. So, of course, we got to find out what's going on so we can get him home as soon and as safely as possible. So before we get into everything, and of course, we have a friend coming onto the show to drop some knowledge, hopefully open our eyes up to where this investigation in this case could go, or where it might not go at all. Before we get into everything, please do me a favor. Hit that like button down below, crush it, make it scream out your name, send it past 300 likes if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook, please do me that solid. All right, hit that reaction button if you're watching on any of these platforms. Of course, if you haven't done that yet, hit that follow button on my social medias. Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, X/Twitter. That'd be greatly appreciated. Of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. You want to support the channel, hit that join button down below and become a member of the family on YouTube. But if you want to support any further, go to my Patreon, patreon.com/the Pascal Show. Okay? Please and thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, guys? All right. Hopefully you guys are all having a great afternoon. Man, it's been one hell of a morning. And now we're about to hop into this particular case. And I'm telling you right now, we have all been wanting to know where the heck is Sebastian Rogers. We've all been wanting to know what's going on and how we can get him home as quick as possible. Thing is that it's been multiple months, not multiple months, but it's been well over 2 months since we've seen this young man. Way too long for this young man to be gone like this. We don't know if he's walked out. We don't know if he was taken. We don't know if anything sinister or unthinkable happened to this young man. He has been nowhere to be found. No clues as of the last 80 plus days, like zero, guys. Zero real clues, at least that I know of, that have been out here. That's all we know from what we have heard from the day that he went missing in late February. Now, the thing is understandably, Seth Rogers, the father, Tony Mathis, the spokesperson for the family, has been out here. They have come out onto News Nation. They had some things to say. Now, we already know about this petition that they put out trying to get FBI involved in the search for Sebastian. Now, I understand. FBI apparently is working alongside TBI, but they are not spearheading this investigation. So they went on to News Nation and they had a few things to say. And I wanted to play this for you guys. Just a small clip from this interview before we bring our friend onto the show. So let's take a look at this. Please do me a favor, hit the number one, make sure you guys can hear this. Let's rock and roll.
This is the teenager vanished in the middle of the night from the Tennessee home where he was living with his mother and his stepfather. Seth Rogers, the teenager's father, made the call Sunday at a vigil for the boy, asking for the FBI to step in as the lead investigative agency. Sebastian was missing on the morning of February 26th, and despite a few hopeful clues that turned out to be false, there have been no signs of the boy anywhere. The Sumner County Sheriff's Office is heading up the search, but Seth says the department has shown no sense of urgency in trying to find his son. He says people have told him they reported evidence to the department, but then got no response back. The sheriff's office says it's been working diligently on the case and that the FBI is already helping along with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. In fact, the TBI issued this Amber Alert on Sebastian the day after he disappeared. But Rogers says a fresh set of eyes is needed and that it's time for the department to hand over the reins completely to the FBI. For more now, we're joined by Seth Rogers, Sebastian's father, and Tony Mathis, a spokesman for Seth and also a family friend. Thanks so much for joining us. Seth, this is not the first time you've called for the FBI to step in and take over. Why do you think it's so important?
I don't want my son to become a cold case. And the way that I'm seeing things now, it'll be a cold case.
You mentioned that people are calling in with information. They're not getting calls back?
Well, they're not going to call back and let them know that they checked the information. What it is I've got people that have contacted me and been like, we found stuff. And we've contacted Sumner County to come pick it up to see if it has any relevance to my son being missing. And they just don't show up.
Tony, what do you think the chances are the FBI will in fact step in? They can't do that unless local officials there ask them to.
I think it's going to take great outlets.
Sorry, both of you can answer, but yeah. Tony, you first, then Seth.
I mean, I think what it's going to take is it's going to take networks such as yours to put a little pressure on them to let them know that either one, we want some confidence that they're getting somewhere in the case, which means a little communication with Seth, which we're not getting, or, we want them to elevate the case.
What do you mean, Seth? You're not communicating with police?
Sumner County, I don't believe that text messages are a valid form of communication. I can't tell anything from your tone or how you're speaking to me. It's just like sending somebody an email in response to their questions, but it actually has more to do with how you respond than what you responded with.
Now, this obviously this whole case has gotten really, really crazy. There's been more and more questions, more than answers surrounding this case, and we are still trying to figure out what's going on. But the one thing I still want to know is how can the Sebastian Rogers investigation get into the hands of FBI so that they can spearhead this thing with ease, without any issues? Is it possible? Is it not possible? Here to join me, I want to be, I just am very excited about bringing this individual back onto the show. It's been a long time since we've had her on the show. She's a host of Break the Case. You can find that on YouTube. She's also a correspondent for News Nation. Please welcome Jennifer Coffindaffer to the show, former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer to the show. How you doing, sweetheart? Thank you so much for being here.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Pascal. I know we're both passionate about Sebastian.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, this whole case has been absolutely crazy. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. Things have just kind of gone off the rails as of late. But of course, we got to get back into the focus, right? We got to get back and push to get this back to our true north, which is figuring out the facts and getting this young man home. And this is the reason why I wanted to bring you on, because I have so many questions. And I've been asking this question since the moment that Seth put out this petition to try to get FBI involved in this case. Now, I understand FBI is working alongside TBI, but they're not spearheading this. So I'm wondering, how can this case ever get led by FBI?
It's such a great question, Pascal, and certainly a question that is asked oftentimes on other missing cases. And the answer can be a little bit complex, yet simple. The simplest way for the FBI to take the reins on a case like this could only be if they are asked to by the local or state department. Then you have to combine that with what would be the statute that the FBI would be investigating. So right now, we don't have any confirmation of a kidnapping, and we don't have any confirmation of any sort of interstate travel to commit a murder or other crime. So right now, the FBI's hands are really tied, and they will not, I believe, take any reins on this case anytime soon.
Okay, that's not really great to hear. I'm going to be honest, Jennifer. I know, and you're not. It's not your fault for giving us the bad news, okay? But it's not great to hear that that there would have to be much more, I don't know, movement happening in to show some sort of foul play or some sort of abduction or something of that sort for FBI to get involved. So then I guess I'm curious. You've been following this case. You've been following the investigation for the most part. What do you think? Where do you think we're at right now in regards to this case?
It's such a great question because unfortunately, the parental units that are involved in this case, Katie Proudfoot, who reported her son missing, Chris Proudfoot, even Seth Proudfoot, Seth Rogers, there's been so much drama and emotion in this case. And it's really detracted from being able to find truth, I believe. All we know certainly is that he was seen at that Roadhouse restaurant. That has been proof of life that we know that's independent from the parents. We've also heard so much information regarding CPS reports and allegations of abuse. I actually posted something from a neighbor that was actually horrific, and that makes everyone wonder if the parents could be involved. That, of course, combined with a lot of the interviews that were done. And when I say parents, of course, I'm speaking of Katie and Chris Proudfoot, because that is where Sebastian was living. Seth Proudfoot, I keep saying Seth Proudfoot, I'm so sorry. Seth Rogers has been cleared. He's taken a polygraph. He wasn't in the area. And actually, according to law enforcement, Chris Proudfoot is in the same boat. So now we're looking just at Katie in terms of something that could have happened that night being there and present.
Right.
It's what we do know is Sebastian Rogers was in the autistic spectrum.
Right.
And so with that being said, he can't be expected to act how others act, that it might just make no sense. I had a case like this. I've talked about it some. My very last case was a case where an individual who was on the spectrum walked away, and many of us felt his mother was responsible. She failed her polygraph. None of it made sense. She failed her polygraph, we came to find out, because she felt guilty that she had left the door open. She knew to lock all those locks on the door. She didn't, because she had a wanderer, someone who had the propensity to leave. She forgot to. So she felt very guilty about that. Anyway, he was found in a nearby waterway after some days. But we're not seeing that here from the standpoint of we have absolutely no proof of life, and we have absolutely no proof of death. He was never seen past the 25th. And when you look at that, it's very possible, and law enforcement has been clear, that there are no signs of foul play. My question, though, is, Pascal, did they do the proper investigation within the house in terms of, did they utilize luminol? Was that utilized at all? Any chemicals to determine substances in and around that house? I don't know the answer to that question. I have to just assume or hope that law enforcement did the proper protocols in their search.
No doubt. I mean, one of the things I am kind of curious about, though, because, I haven't had anybody on that's part of law enforcement or, has seen investigations into a potential crime scene or to a scene at all. So I am happy that you're here to kind of break some of these things down for me, and hopefully for the rest of the fam that's watching the show. One of the things I'm kind of curious about is, okay, he goes missing, right? He's reported missing. People come in, law enforcement of all kinds, dogs of all kinds come in, sniffing around, etc. Why wasn't that house just secured? Why wasn't it just shut down and saying, hey, no one in, no one out of this house? Even if they don't look at it as a crime scene, this is the last place that he was allegedly seen alive. So why wouldn't they just kind of, I don't know, conceal this house so that there isn't any manipulation, there isn't anything to kind of tarnish any potential evidence? I'm just kind of curious as to why they didn't look at the scene like a crime scene, since we haven't seen this kid in 80 plus days.
Right. It's a great question. Again, I'm not sure we have the facts on this, whether it was shut down and whether it was treated like a crime scene. What my understanding is, it has been searched. That house has been searched on multiple occasions, and the grounds as well as the camper, meaning the grounds, their yard areas, were searched very thoroughly on multiple occasions. I don't know if it was shut down, meaning that no one was allowed in or out. That certainly should have been the protocol taken. And I don't have reason per se to know that it wasn't initially. But remember, there is a huge lapse of time between the time he was reported missing and the time he was last seen alive. And that amount of time, certainly a lot can happen.
Interesting. I got a super chat that I want to get before it just, gets overwhelming or anything of that stuff. Cake, thank you so much for it. Question to you, Jen. So are results for Poly given to a two-person taking it same day? So good question, though.
Great question.
Do you find out? Because, for example, I know we're kind of going back to the embryo stasis of this whole story, this whole case. But, you had Chris Proudfoot, you had Katie Proudfoot out here saying they took Polly's, they passed with flying colors kind of thing. Would law enforcement tell them if they had a sufficient test result?
Yes. And I'll tell you also what happens is polygraphs are great investigative tools. In other words, I think a lot of people picture that you just walk into a room and they strap you up to all these cables and cords, and that is what happens. And that's really not at all what happens. What happens is you're interviewed and you're given this whole series of questions, and it's meant to help ferret out somebody so they're not tempted to go and take a polygraph if they're intending to lie. So there's this whole pre-interview process that's used, with sort of hanging out in the background is the polygraph machine, right, that they're looking at. And typically, people who have no concern in terms of telling the truth, typically, they're like, let's go. I know it's going to detect if I'm lying, and guess what? I'm not lying. And so you're going to see some very usual responses. Then after that, the process is explained and they're hooked up. And again, there can only be a couple of questions even asked. It's usually 2, maybe 3, and they're very pointed for a yes, no response. And everything is calibrated. Oh, yeah. It's not a series of questions.
Okay, so it's not okay, because I understand that, for example, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but for example, Seth Rogers did a polygraph, and the first time he did it, he started falling asleep during the poly. So and he said this on I think Nancy Grace, if I'm correct, and he had to do the polygraph again. Are they asking the questions really slowly? Like, how does that happen if they're only doing 3 questions and one falls asleep? I'm just curious about that. Any thoughts on that?
When you first start out and your question, of course, they're going to say, what's your name? Where you live. These are questions that are sort of benchmark questions that they can take your respirations, your pulse, your rate, and understand what they're dealing with in terms of somebody who's not under stress and not lying. What happens to the body when you fabricate a lie. So they do have to do the baseline. But the questions that they are going to ask, there's only literally 2 or 3 that have to do with that case. And typically it's going to be, did you have anything to do with Sebastian's disappearance? Something like that.
Right.
Did you kill Sebastian? Something like that. Do you know where Sebastian is? Those would probably be 3 questions, at least those premises, that I would work with the polygrapher if I had this case to get to those pointed questions. So I don't know why he would fall asleep. I know and I'm not saying anything about the polygrapher that Nancy Grace used. I mean, if I were Seth, and obviously I've met Seth, I really appreciate him coming on and sharing his amazing story and his truth about his relationship with his son. Having said that, Pascal, the place for a polygraph is in a law enforcement environment, I believe, not on a show. And I think that just added to really all of this drama we're seeing and all of the sensationalizing of this case. And it's really, so I don't know exactly the parameters they did, but I can tell you the parameters that we do in criminal cases. And as a person who got polygraphed every 3 years to keep my security clearances, top secret at highest levels, you have to be polygraphed at least every 3 years to hold those clearances, if not more. And so I'm very familiar with the process.
Very interesting. There's another part to this super chat that I want to get to too. Does law enforcement lie to third parties about results to keep investigation quiet, like reporters?
So typically, I will tell you, I know a lot of people believe that law enforcement lies to get to an end. What law enforcement does is they just won't talk. That's typically what they do when they do not want to say yes or no to something, or they will give the statement, which I've seen constantly in this case. There's no proof that anything bad happened. Everybody is, no one's been cleared per se, but we're investigating this as a missing person as if he walked away. So they've been very unclear, right? It's a soup sandwich in terms of us in the public being able to get really anything out of law enforcement in this case. But back to the question is, no, typically law enforcement will not lie about a polygraph result or anything like that. They'll typically say, listen, they passed. But what I wish we could see in this case is what we saw in the Brian Koberger case. In that case, law enforcement came out every week with a list of cleared individuals. And they added to it each week. Jacks are cleared. Jack is cleared. The DoorDash guy is cleared. They cleared
2 surviving roommates
Ubers,
are cleared.
Yes, they cleared people as they passed polygraphs. So they didn't discuss about polygraphs, but it's all about the whole picture, right? So likely passing polygraphs along with alibis, along with the totality of what they saw from digital information, cleared them. I'd love to see that here. Because we are not seeing that here, to me, it does point to the direction of they are still being considered. But I think we cannot, and I've said this from the beginning, Pascal, we cannot jump on Katie Proudfoot killing Sebastian. We just can't do that.
No, that's very true. That's very true. Well, I agree. I hear you on that. I do think that there's a lot of things. I use this analogy a lot. There's a lot of things on the table, and I think that's one of the options that's on the table. I don't think it's the main thing, but it's on the table. You see what I'm saying? It could have been he lashed out, ran out the door. He could have been punished, and she closed the door on him and said, if you're going to keep acting out like this, you can stay outside. And she shut the door and then When she walked back out there, he was gone. The options in this situation are endless because we don't have anything, right? This kid literally, as Seth said one time, this kid literally like used the force almost and just levitated out the house, leaving no trail of anything, which is so very odd. Now, okay, and this goes back to what we were talking about with FBI and all that, and it goes back to this video I just played where Seth is expressing his concerns about this becoming a cold case. What can be done to prevent it from becoming a cold case right now?
Well, I think to have a reasonable discussion about a case going to a cold case, we have to understand the definition of a cold case. What is a cold case? A cold case is a case that is not being actively worked. It's something that's sitting back on the shelf. It's Summer Wells is the perfect example of a cold case. No one is actively working it, meaning a guy or a detective isn't getting up every morning and investigating, not, interviewing, not searching, not looking at records. They're not actively investigating. So by definition, a cold case, no one is actively working. And that's what Seth is worried about. I think we're far from that at this time with Sebastian. I would be worried too as a parent, but we're far away from that, I believe, at this point, because people are still searching, not law enforcement per se, but other people that are going to find clues. And I think law enforcement is still actively searching and probably continuing to look hard at Katie Proudfoot.
Interesting. And of course, I would understand them looking at her. I mean, just doing logically speaking, she's the last person to see Sebastian living and breathing. So, of course, instantly, everyone should be looking in that direction. That doesn't mean admission of guilt. That doesn't mean that she's guilty of anything, but still, that's the angle. That's the avenue, right? That's the direction. But okay, we got this investigation going and all that, but we do also have a father, Seth Rogers. At least, he's been the most vocal out here as of late, expressing his concerns. You saw that in the video. He's going, I don't want this to turn into a cold case. So to make things even, since you are former FBI agent, former law enforcement, you've dealt with some grieving families, some concerned parents, and all that. What can TBI, local law enforcement, Sumner County Sheriff's Office, and whatnot, what can they do right now to calm Seth's mind, to make him feel like there is actual movement going on in their part of this investigation?
Pascal, again, you always, and I'm not just saying this, you always ask such good questions, and I think questions that are on the minds of your viewers. This is what I believe should happen. In the Bureau, we had something called a witness victim coordinator. And they were amazing. They were highly trained individuals, both from the standpoint of education as well as on-the-job training, if you will, understanding the nexus between a case agent and a criminal investigation and the loved ones that are anguishing over what is happening. And they served as the middle person to be 24/7 on call, to verbally, I think Seth brought up a great point, to verbally communicate with that person, to go to their house, to alleviate some of the stress and some of the fear. And this is the thing, law enforcement can release information such as, we are running down 5 credible leads today. There's been 5 possible sightings and we're running down those leads. Can't tell you where, can't tell you anything else. Next week, we'll get back with you and tell you if those 5 leads were, how they fared it out, either
how
negative or
out.
Exactly. It's just these little nuggets. That's what these families are looking for. Another nugget they could say is, listen, we have 10 records we're looking at, phone records that we're analyzing, to do with geofencing or whatever. And this is where we're at in this process. We're 1/3 of the way done. We still have 2/3 to go, though. So sit tight. Let me get back to you next week and let you know what progress is being made. Those are the types of things families want to hear. It doesn't have to be more detailed than that. And that's not happening here, apparently.
Yeah, because I'm kind of curious, and I want to make this abundantly clear, because some people are taking what you're saying and thinking that this is what those examples you were using were actual facts in this investigation. Guys, no, she's using that as examples on how law enforcement, it would be nice if law enforcement would just give him nuggets. Those are examples. They have nothing to do with anything that pertains to this case, just so y'all know. Because we don't want everybody jumping down a rabbit hole into something that's not true at all. Okay. So just to make that abundantly clear. All right. But here's the thing, because they're not doing that allegedly. They're not doing that right now. So what is it that, and maybe this is just coming from the heart, maybe speaking from the angle of experience. What can Sebastian, Tony, the rest of this team, what can they do to maybe get back, kind of reset the playing field, you know what I mean? Reset the table so that they all can sit together and break bread. And I'm talking about TBI, FBI, local law enforcement, and the people that are so concerned in trying to find Sebastian. What's a way that they can just set everything back, just get everything back to normal?
Right. That is the difficulty, because look, when you're local law enforcement, and I believe that these officers and detectives that are assigned, they get up every morning and worry about Sebastian. They go to bed every night very late, worrying and working on the Sebastian's case. I can tell you, in that case I mentioned earlier with that kid, we were all working round the clock. I remember getting a call from my big boss. I was supervisor from my ASAC, and told, you have to go home. I mean, I'd been there, I don't know, 38 hours or something. He said, you have to leave and go home and get rest. We'll pull in somebody else to take your spot. And then they put us on 12-hour shifts, where I was the incident command for a 12-hour shift, and then another supervisor was for the other. But my point is that these officers care. I can assure everyone of that. They are busting their tails. No one wants it solved more, other than Seth and loved ones of Sebastian. No one wants it more than that. But second, right in line, is law enforcement. And not because they care about egg on their face or anything else, but because they want this solved. And I believe what's happened in this case is law enforcement has lost their faith in, the parents of Sebastian, of being able to communicate with them much, because of this circus show that they know is going on. Make no mistake, there are people in law enforcement that are monitoring social media, and they see this hot mess going on. And what law enforcement always asks the parents is, please put your son's name out, put his face out, help people to connect with your son. You know who did a very nice job of this was Riley Strain's family. They did a good job of just, putting his face and name out there, Pascal, but it didn't get what's happened here. I mean, the ugliness in this case is at pitch level, and law enforcement knows that Seth and Katie and Chris will run to any YouTuber that has a pulse, and will run to any TikToker with a pulse, anybody, and start talking about the other parties involved, and about speculation, and that is a big problem. So they don't trust them. I'm just going to say it. That's a problem.
Hey, well, let me look if I can interject. And I hear you 100%. I mean, it has gone off the rails. I mean, that goes without saying. I mean, I was just talking about that last night, how things just really have gone off the rails, and we have lost focus, and the focus is on Sebastian. But also will say, and I mean, of course, just using loosely Riley Strain's case, is that there was constant updates. There were constant pieces of nuggets and news and everything. Whereas this one, he went missing in late February. All we
Yep.
know is that he left with the clothes on his back, with no shoes, a flashlight, and not his cell phone, and the glasses on his face. That's all we know. No stitch of nothing, no scent, no footprints, no nothing. And it's been the same like that for 80 plus days. So I can understand things going a little crazy, things getting a little wild because of the things that have been building up as of late, the drama that's been building around this case and all that, and concerned parents speaking out. Because I can't relate, but I can understand, right? But because we don't have everything, because we don't know any new developments, it's starting to eat away at people's own mental health, right? It's starting to become people going a little crazy, right? And so that's kind of the thing I've noticed. We had body cam footage on Riley. We had people looking at street cams, being able to grab certain things. There was so much there for us to consume and break down and look at. And also there was no East Side versus West Side type thing. There was no bad guy to look at. You see what I'm saying? We believe that there could be a bad guy out there, but there was no, family to stand against, because the families were together and working in unison. In fact, they even had their own person, a family friend, to speak for them on the family's behalf whenever they couldn't get on to these podcasts and these interviews as well. But because I think there was more stuff, more info for the people, for the public to consume, I think it was a lot easier to ride with. Whereas this one, there's nothing, and everyone's just...
Well, I think 2 points. First of all, I want to make clear that when I say on anybody and everybody's YouTube and, Twitter, I'm not maligning any of these creators or TikTokers. What I'm trying to say is that law enforcement is concerned, right? That they will say something that will proliferate that they don't want said, because they've already seen a lot of things being said that is very inflammatory. So I want to make that clear, that that's the point I'm talking about, because it is so important to keep his name and his face out there. I hope every YouTuber on the planet and every TikToker is Instagrammer. We need his name and face out there if he's going to be found. But back to your point on the Riley Strain different, you really said, in a sense, what I was going to add is that Riley Strain's case is completely different. I think from the facts and circumstances, from everyone in law enforcement, it was very clear that he had fallen in that river. And there was so much video and so much information, as you mentioned. There wasn't a bad guy. There wasn't some possible bad guy involved. This is so different because the possible bad guy could be Katie, could be somebody else, or quite frankly, Sebastian Rogers could have walked away and is with somebody right now on, kidnapped or otherwise. I mean, it's a possibility that has to be considered. I want to really quickly point out Connor Jack Oswald. And this is the case that I think gives me hope, and why a lot of people will say on my Twitter, Jennifer, Katie did it, or he's not alive. They say things like this, of course, because everybody's concerned. Connor Jack Oswald walked out of his life. He was on the autistic spectrum at 17. Now, that's not much of an age difference. Barely a couple of years.
Very true.
And he was found 2.5 years later, homeless, recognized by someone, and returned back to his family. Thank goodness. I know, I believe in miracles. I'm a warm and fuzzy person. That's why we do it, Pascal, right?
Absolutely.
That's what we care about, Sebastian. We're hoping one day to get the call.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm also a realist. I mean, I do understand as every day ticks by, there's less of a chance that we're going to find Sebastian. I understand that.
Yeah, and it's frustrating, and I get it, the frustration and why people feel some type of way, but I think that I think instead of us looking outward and looking at the enemy, which is, the lack of information, right? The fact that things are being held against, like the truth and all that. That is the main focus I feel that we all should be having right now. It's finding Sebastian, the frustration of finding Sebastian, not trying to cannibalize, you know what I mean? Like coming after each other and all that, coming after the people that are involved in the case. To me, that just makes people want to stay away from the case, not want to work on the case, so on and so forth, hence the reason why, I appreciate you being here and being a part of the conversation here, talking about the possibilities and the things of what we know and what we could expect in the near future. Now, I do have some super chats that I want to grab here really quick before they, do this. Melly, thank you so much. Love this duo. Welcome, Jen. Of course, Jennifer Coffin Diver has a really great podcast she just started a couple months ago. It's called Break the Case. Definitely go check it out. She's obviously a correspondent for News Nation, and she does some really great work. She's been on the show many, many times before. We've covered a lot of stuff with her, covered a lot of different cases with her. And just her bringing her FBI expertise on these certain cases. So I appreciate that. S-Dub, is this a what if, or is this a legit happening?
What a great question. I like how, are you a writer? Whoever wrote that?
Shout out to my mod. That's my mod, S-Dubs. SW, SW 4x4
That's one of your
Explorers.
mods?
Yeah, Explorers. Yeah, she's awesome.
Good mod. No, I
Yeah.
like how she even worded that.
Yeah.
It's I don't think it's a whodunit at this point. I say that there's one thing that's always bothered me in this case, and I posted on it very early on. There was a Facebook group, and in that Facebook group, a mom and a daughter, the mom actually came forward and said, listen, I just saw Sebastian on Saturday or something. I've already told the police. They know all about it. Okay. Now, that ended up being wrong. It was somebody who looked like Sebastian. It wasn't Sebastian. But this is the nugget I got out of that correspondence. Katie Proudfoot went on that Facebook and she said, did he have shoes? And the reason Katie Proudfoot asked that, I think, was because she was trying in her mind to was it really him? Because he didn't have shoes on. Could it really be him? Now, based on my experience, someone who murdered somebody or accidentally killed somebody and then threw him in a dumpster,
Right.
They're not going to ask that question. They're just going to be watching and looking at the different conversations. They're not going to engage like that. That is one thing that always made me wonder. It gave me legitimacy to the fact that he could have walked away and that Katie might not be involved. Now, there's been a lot of other things since that have given me pause. But right now, I think it is very plausible that he walked away. It's plausible.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it is plausible. It definitely is. And, you know, that's the story that you told earlier, just a little bit about Connor, right? Connor Blackburn? Was it Blackburn?
No, Connor Jack Oswald.
Why do I have Blackburn in my head? Oswald.
Cool name.
Because I remember, you know, I got to write that down. But I remember hearing about that case. And he was living only a few miles away from his home where he apparently just disappeared from as well. And so, yeah, there is a good possibility that he just up and walked out. That could very well be it. But I do have a few more. So let me grab these really quick. Carbonize. So what does the evidence thus far say to our guest? That's a good question too. See, my fam, we don't mess around. We got questions, great questions. They're brilliant. But what do you think? All the evidence that you've heard so far, you've seen, we've talked about this. I know you've covered this case ad nauseum as well. Talking about the same things, right? About the same clues that we have, which is not much, or it hasn't changed much. Let's just say that. What does the evidence for you say about this, of what happened to Sebastian Rogers?
I'm going to say the evidence right now that we all know and can see, touch, and feel, there is nothing that shows foul play from an evidentiary standpoint. In other words, is Katie Proudfoot such a mastermind that she was able in those hours to just cover everything up? Perhaps, and dispose of a body without any sign? That's really, that's one thing that's really stuck with me. It's, it's difficult to fool law enforcement. It's difficult to fool a polygraph. It happens. Yeah. But I have to keep my needle, even though there's been some things that really bother me, I have to keep the needle that he could still be found. I'm keeping my needle there, Pascal, with reservation that he could be found.
Absolutely. I mean, I understand. I mean, the evidence it's not enough, and it's all just polarizing. It's all on the fence. It doesn't mean foul play. It doesn't mean he ran. It doesn't mean Katie had anything to do with it. It doesn't mean that Chris had anything to do with it. It doesn't even mean that a neighbor had anything to do with it. It's just all still just kind of a blanket stalemate, which is very, very frustrating. Real quick, Barbara, thank you so much. Do you think CP is hindering the investigation by not allowing property to be searched by dogs? Good question.
I mean, yes. You just imagine, and I know all of your listeners have, because I can tell they're looking into this in an intellectual way, but a heartfelt way. If your son, if you got up and your autistic spectrum child had left in this manner, I dare say that all of us would do anything in our power to welcome law enforcement, to say, do whatever you need to do, whenever you need to do it. Now, yesterday, the day after it all happened, we're 100%. Now, recall, law enforcement has said that they have fully cooperated, but I know what your listener is speaking about. And certainly, I heard that report. Well, I didn't hear that report. I saw it written out by Chris Proudfoot. So it's concerning, and I don't understand it. And that's, again, something that gives pause. I'm going to say it gives pause. It's something as an investigator that I put it over on this side and say, that's not lining up.
Right. Math ain't mathin', right? And it doesn't make sense. And you just kind of have to roll with it. And that is frustrating because instantly you're going, ooh, but I still want to sit here and say, like, innocent until proven guilty. But then this stuff comes out and you're like, oh, that's weird. That's weird. But I'm going to stay here. But I'm looking at it. But I'm going to stay here. So I get what you're saying, 110%. And it can be very frustrating. And I think that's what's so frustrating for everybody else right now. It's that, it's either they're leaning on one side really, really hard, and then something happens and it averts their eyes a little bit. But they're like, I'm going to keep an eye on that, though, because that could mean innocence, or that could mean more guilt. But I'm going to stay on my side. And I think that's what's going on here right now as we speak, too, with everybody in the chats and in the forums and all that stuff as well. Lisa, thank you so much. So Sheriff Sumner County Sheriff's Office, TBI, is taking evidence seriously by searchers, is not taking evidence seriously by searchers, allegedly. Some disposed of personal relationships between Sumner County Sheriff's Office, TBI, and CP, and family alleged. So that is true. He did say in the interview in the beginning that Seth said he's getting that they have plenty of evidence that they want to give to law enforcement, but apparently they're having a hard time getting that evidence to law enforcement. What are your thoughts on that? Because I've heard some crazy stories about, oh, we found some material. We found a mattress pad. We found this, and this, and we tried to get it. We found pants, for crying out loud, or a hoodie. Try to get it to law enforcement, and they just kind of looked at it and threw it on the ground. Why are we hearing or seeing this kind of alleged treatment of said evidence, potential evidence, revolve around this case?
Well, I want to draw another analogy that the true crimers in your audience that have been around for the last couple of years might remember the case of Michael Vaughn. Michael Vaughn was a little kiddo, I believe 6 years old, I believe. He was reported missing. It reminds me so much of this case, and no one could find him. No one found, there were dogs, there were everything, just like what happened with Sebastian. And now, of course, it's believed that a neighbor, when Michael Vaughn left to probably go to this water park or go visit a neighbor, because it's very well tracked, the different neighbors he went and visited, that he was snatched, and law enforcement certainly seems to believe he was murdered. They dug up this neighbor's entire yard. They held the neighbor, Wandra, for quite a while. And in any event, they've never had charges yet. But in that case, there were so many instances of searchers as the case started to go cold. I hate to even use that word, but as the case started to drag along, that somebody along the side of the road, I remember this very particularly, a searcher said that they found, I think, some clothes or something that gave them a lot of concern. And I remember law enforcement said, we're not going to go out there. And of course, this was months and months after everything happened, and law enforcement believed they had thoroughly searched that area. So not that they didn't believe there was something there, but rather they knew they searched it. So why are we going to go back now and go pick up something of old? What I think law enforcement should always do is respond. I know they don't, that takes time and it takes a report, because anything you do, you have to write it or it doesn't happen. So they would have to go out there, take the time, collect it as potential evidence, and do a write-up and store it, and then probably have to do another write-up to get permission from their supervisor to throw it away once they find it's not relevant, right? So that's what you're looking at. When they believe they hear something about something that's very far away, or perhaps, I'm just telling you, that's what the thought process is. Personally, for me, if it was my case and I was in charge, I'd say, go out there, check it out, collect it. Let's see if we can figure this out. But it's a lot of work, and imagine how often that happens. So I'm just trying to provide an explanation as to why law enforcement doesn't respond all the time.
No, it absolutely makes sense. It's just that I can see why people are upset, especially people who have been working their tails off, putting in hours and hours, countless hours of blood, sweat, and tears, searching for this young man, right? And then they do find something, and then suddenly they're going, oh my gosh, this could be something. This could be a break in the case. See what I did there? Could be a break in the case. And all of a sudden, law enforcement doesn't show up, right? Or when they do show up, they just kind of, they don't bag it and tag it. They just kind of like, and they just kind of dump it. They throw it back on the ground like it's trash, instead of actually taking it in, doing their due diligence and making sure that this is not of Sebastian's. And sometimes I instantly think in my mind, it's like either I could see why some people will feel like they don't care, they don't give a damn, law enforcement, or they already have everything that they need in regards to the investigation of this case, but they're just not letting it out, letting that off. What are your thoughts on that theory?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. If they are down the road in a particular direction right now, and they know that there's some extraneous information that really, in other words, if they feel like they are on a correct track to figuring out what happened, and then there's something else happening over here in Georgia, and they're looking in Tennessee, right? I'm just pulling up an analogy here.
Right.
Then it makes sense that they're not going to respond. But let me tell you why they always should. Another reason why. It could be related to another case. I can't tell you how often that happens. You're looking in this direction and somebody calls about this, and all of a sudden this ends up being something pertinent to another case or another situation. So I think it behooves law enforcement to respond, especially when you have these searchers that are committing all this time and hours. But to your point, yes, it could be possible that the reason they're not responding is because they believe they are on a different track, and that track is going to lead them to Sebastian. I mean, in other words, they are already following a set of clues that we don't.
No, and thank you so much for breaking that down. I mean, obviously they're not going to turn to them and go, and look at the evidence that they found and then just throw it on the ground and go, see, okay, let me just explain to you why I just threw it back on the ground. We're working on another investigation, and that has, that just had something to do with some old news. Just so you know, okay, thank you so much, sweetheart. Bye-bye. I get it. That's not what's going to happen. Okay, I get that 110%, but I also do feel that people are still feeling disheartened with that kind of alleged reaction. Okay. Because I haven't seen it personally. I've not been there with my own eyes, a witness to this type of treatment, but that's what I've been hearing about the treatment out here in these streets, especially within this search. And that, so, thank you so much for breaking that down. I really do appreciate it. We got a couple more. Samantha, Pascal, does our guest believe that if the FBI is taking over the case, that they will bring in Chris and Katie for questioning again? For questioning again? Yeah. If they take over, will Chris Proudfoot and Katie Proudfoot be back in the interrogation room, questioned all over again?
Yeah, good question, but I don't want to, is it Samantha? I don't want to dishearten Samantha, but I don't believe it's going to be taken over. But say there was information, like I mentioned, a kidnapping or something across state lines, and combine that with local law enforcement, TBI, asked the FBI to take the lead, then yes, I mean, the Bureau is going to, in a lot of ways, start all over. They're going to look at everything all over again. You have to do that. You have to conduct your own investigation.
Okay. So that would be a affirmative, I guess. Affirmative. That would be affirmative. See, that's some
lot of jabbering to say yes.
No, it's all good. You good? No, I'm just saying. I was just saying affirmative. Like FBI. Affirmative. 10-4.
10-4. I still use my 10 codes all the time.
Oh, really? What's your 20 and all that?
What's your 20? You've probably seen it. I guarantee in our DMs, when I respond affirmatively, I write 10-4. I do it with everything. 10-4.
Hey, it's all good. You know what I mean? Some things you just can't shake, right?
Habits are hard to break.
S-Dubs just asked this. Thank you so much, S-Dubs. Julia Valenti, dog handler, needs to know if she's been chatting with you on X. So she's just asking, I guess, to confirm.
Oh, okay. So
Julia,
there is a dog handler that I very much want to intersect with, that I've been kind of going back and forth on X. Perhaps that's Julia. We still have not hooked up. I really do want to try to talk to the dog handlers that were out there or that are currently out there or want to be out there.
Yeah.
So
I know it's
please DM me,
been,
Julia.
It has been musical chairs a lot lately. There's been a lot of coverage about the musical chairs situation going on. But yeah, I mean, yes, now that's been confirmed. Hopefully that will suffice, right? But moving on, Shirley, can you ask why law enforcement, and this is just a random question that I want to pull up here that just caught my eye, and I think it's a good question. Why hasn't law enforcement done a presser as of late to debunk any of these rumors that have been out here and all that? I think that's a good question too.
It's a great question, and we touched on it earlier, right? A lot of times law enforcement takes a lot of heat, and the heat could be put out sometimes by just a press conference or press release or some information. But I will say this, and this actually I think happened on this case. They held a press conference and said nothing. So they got everybody together. I think it was this case. And at the end of the day, all of us were asking, why have a press conference? You didn't say one thing. So that's the double-edged sword. Law enforcement doesn't want to get everybody together, waste the time, and say nothing. So I think that's what you're seeing here. They don't have anything more they want to disclose right now.
Okay. I mean, because obviously there really hasn't been much. And I know that there may not be anything they want to put out here to say, we're hot on the trail of this one thing and we don't want to jeopardize that piece, because if he is being held against his will, they don't want to sit there and go, yeah, Sammy's got him, you know what I mean? And, down the corner, then suddenly that guy might do something drastic and, do something bad to Sebastian, of course. So, of course, trying to find ways to keep him safe. But, it's just, To me though, I'm just going to say this and be as candid as I possibly can. Why can't law enforcement just say, we believe he ran off? Why can't they just say that? Simple as straight up and down, like 6 o'clock, just straight ahead. Presser guys, here it is. Thank you all for showing up. Big thank you to FBI, all the people all the agencies, all the acronyms that have been working together with us. We believe that this young man ran off. Or we believe he left on his own accord. That's it. I feel like if they said something like that, this would be a completely different conversation. They always have those things of, we believe that. Sometimes they don't even have evidence. They'll sit there and say, we believe that Harmony Montgomery lost her life. And this is not a rescue. This is a recovery or something of that sort. They're not saying anything at all, and that is I think a huge problem for all of us out here. So why not just say, if they believe that this young man, God forbid, has lost his life and it's a recovery rather than a rescue, why not say that? Or why not say this young man ran off on his own accord? You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have 2 words: Summer Wells. We saw the same thing in the Summer Wells investigation because law enforcement didn't have, I understand, the evidence to point one way or the other. And because they feel like they don't have the evidence to say strongly one way or the other, they're saying nothing. No one wants to hear that answer, but that's what's happening. And it's happening again here.
So real quick, before we wrap everything up, again, I appreciate you being here. What do you think? And I know I said this earlier, but I'm going to ask it one more time. What do you think is the next steps in the investigation for Sebastian Rogers' case?
So I would call them even steps. I mean, they need to be, and I know they are, is looking very diligently at any and all records that they have concerning digital information. And you might say, well, Jen, I'm sure they've been doing that for 2.5 months, but a lot of records don't come in for weeks and for months. And when I say this, I'm talking about everything from possible ring video information or Ring camera information. I'm talking about other video information from in and around that neighborhood that would be in different locations. I'm talking about digital information concerning Chris and Katie Proudfoot, any relatives of theirs, any associations of anyone else of theirs. I'm talking about the geofence information. Once you start looking at those, numbers, and there's so much more to do. Once you establish a number, then you have to look at what was the exact time frame, and then you have to see what phones contact that phone. There is a lot to do, and these carriers, unfortunately, don't always answer lickety split, even though it's just a pressing of a button. So there's a lot that hopefully, and I would believe, because I have faith in the blue for the most part, I really hope that these items are being done.
One other question. I'm sorry. I lied. I got another question. When it comes to footage, the footage that they allegedly already have, I mean, they only showed, from what Seth has said, they only showed him proof of life, which was the video of Sebastian walking out of Texas Roadhouse, getting in the car and driving off. Now, if there is street cam footage, etc., and I'm sure they have, gigabytes, hard drives filled with just security cameras all over the place. Why haven't they just shown everything to the families in general that are just wanting to see the footage that they have so far?
Well, I'm curious as to what they actually have, because they have the starting point. But again, I can't tell you how many times you'll go to a Quick Trip or, whatever, and look for and they say, oh, sorry, it recorded over. Or sorry, we didn't have it plugged in. I mean, it's mind boggling, but oftentimes the video camera doesn't work, whatever it might be. So I'm curious, because they have that starting point. It's in a populated area. There should be so much potential video footage, and then you have to leapfrog it. Just think of and then what happened if she didn't go from point A to point B, which I think she said she didn't. There were other stops in there. So there's a lot for them to go through. There's a lot for them to try to get their hands on. And remember, you have to use subpoenas and search warrants to get this information. And that's a whole nother judicial process, because everything's going to be called into question, right? Chain of custody, verification that that's authentic. We call it authentic evidence that we know the origin. So there's a lot to do behind the scenes. So I really, truly believe we're way premature to ever think this is going to go cold at this point, and a lot's being done.
So when you say way premature, that this is going to go cold, honestly, I think that's great to hear that it's really early to say or predict it going cold. But you understand that we've been 80 days in this mug. Okay. We've been 80 days in this thing. So I'm wondering, when is, you say early, how long do you think this is going to take?
Well, that's the problem. When, as we talked about, we have to understand the definition of a cold case. And a cold case is not defined by a number of days or a number of hours or a number of months or even years. It's defined by, are people actively working it? And is information coming in to be worked, to be investigated? And I think we're not even at all in that realm. And I really caution everyone that when you send out a search warrant or a subpoena, it can take weeks. I know in Caleb Harris's case, it's taken months in some cases. I don't know exactly how many months, so I don't want to plural, but I know well over a month to get some subpoenaed information. So it does take a while. If you're not one of those officers that was like me, that I'm calling the people, that I'm, a squeaky wheel talking to the data clerk.
Right.
This is not a white collar case. This isn't financial. This isn't a property crime. This is a life. Let's get on it. Press your button, get me this record, right? But it takes that kind of just dogged on it. I'm not saying that they're not doing that. I'm just saying it's a process.
Interesting. Yeah, because I mean, I guess I keep thinking that, as you just said, it's a life. So every single day, and somebody just corrected me, we're 90 days out. I don't know. I don't know if we
25th
are.
of February.
Right, right. So, oh wow. I mean, we're getting close. We're definitely getting close, but it's over 80 days for sure.
Right.
But still, no matter what, it's been over 80 days. Okay. And we still don't know where he is. So when they say all the subpoenas and all these, the paperwork, the red tape, all this stuff, I guess that's the thing that gets very frustrating to hear, because it's like, we got to jump through all these hoops just so we could see 5 seconds of video of this street cam, or, X, Y, and Z, just so we can find out where this young man is. Because I look at all these other cases that we have covered. You've covered it. I've covered it, where within days they find that missing person, right? It'll be, unfortunately, like, for example, Audrey Cunningham, she was found. It didn't take 80 days. It didn't take over 80 days to find her. The turnaround was pretty damn quick. So, and that's just one example. But there's been a slew of other missing person cases that the turnaround's been fast. They were able to find, somebody just said this too, asking about satellite images. Lee, thank you so much. They do work. Have it right there, or do they work right over there? You know what I mean? They've been able to use a lot of different type of technology to follow or find missing persons so lickety split. So why is this one so different from all these other ones? Because of red tape? That just seems a bit asinine to me.
No, what I mean, when it's dragging out this long, this is way more complicated than a lot of the other missing cases. I think if you look, and I hate to quote stats because I don't have it in front of me, the number, and then somebody say, see, Jennifer wasn't telling the truth. It's 83 instead of 86 or whatever. But essentially, it's in the 80s, as I recall, of missing people that are found within 48 hours. It's really a rarity to have these cases drag out, but they happen.
Wow.
And when they drag out like this, it's further and further chance that they'll be found alive. That's just the facts. But Connor Jack Oswald, he keeps my hope alive.
No doubt. One last question. Got a super chat in here, and I appreciate all the super chats, all the questions as well. All right. Blue Eyes, thank you so much. Why is law enforcement saying there are no signs of foul play, then search a landfill? What was the probable cause for the warrant? That's a very good question. And we're going all the way back. But we're going all the way back. But Blue Eyes got a good point there.
Blue
no
Eyes,
signs of foul play. And then a search for landfill. So what's up with that then?
Remember when I told you my pause button over here, my pause, things that give me pause?
Exactly.
Look, I know they said this is a routine search of a landfill. There's no such thing as a routine search of a landfill. I saw the photos of the search, and I know it took no time at all. A real landfill search is like the search for Quentin Simon.
Yeah.
Many of us watched that. You had the FBI out there all rigged out in hazmat clothing day after day after day. And it's not just a grid search this way, it's a grid search this way, because landfills run vertical as well as horizontal. It's painstaking. There's no way they could have done that landfill search, even if that dump truck driver thought he remembered, or the trash driver thought he remembered. It's still very difficult by the time they got out there to do a proper search, in my opinion. But the bigger question is Blue Eyes' question. What was the probable cause to go out there? Because to convince a judge that you are going to impose on a business's right to be free from illegal search and seizures, you have to put their probable cause of why you think indicia of a crime is there. So they had something that they thought. It doesn't always pan out, but I would love to see that probable cause statement. That's always bothered me and given me great pause, because a judge approved it. A judge said, there's PC, it's out there.
Yep.
PC is above reasonable suspicion, by the way. So I don't know, but that's on my side that gives me pause.
Ooh. Question. So what was it, do you think, that would make the judge go, oh, yeah, y'all get your butts out there right now. I'm going to sign it. Go. What was the evidence? What was the evidence that made them go, oh, yeah, no, go to that landfill, toot sweet right now. Go. Can you explain that to me? Because that's interesting.
That's the $1 million question. What did they line out for those of us who have seen Brian Kohberger's probable cause affidavit or Richard Allen's probable cause affidavit, anybody's affidavit, it lines out why they believe something is there. And it has to be very detailed. It doesn't have to be 20 something pages like Kohberger's, but it has to be detailed.
Stargazing.
So it's concerning.
Sorry, that's his alibi. I'm sorry. I was saying stargazing and looking at the moon, but that's his alibi. I apologize. Yep. That I'm still worked up about that trash of an alibi. But okay. I think we have answered as many. You know what? I'm going to, because I know that some people in the chat feel some type of way. Let me just grab a couple of these questions real quick.
Pick up my kiddo.
Can I get one question from the group chat? Okay. From the family chat real quick. And then we will let you go. I appreciate you coming in here and being a part of the conversation. Thank you so very much. And hopefully this answers some of all of our questions. Okay. CBC says, answer the probability that Sebastian will be alive and how much it diminishes daily. If it was your autistic son, make the boxes get checked off, especially with lacking police forces. So what are your thoughts as far as the probability of Sebastian, being alive at this point in the search? 80 plus days. Now we're about to round 90 days here in a little bit. What are your thoughts on the probability of his survival rate if he's out there by himself right now?
You can't really put a number on it. It's a great question. You can't put a number on it. Like I said, Connor Jack Oswald lasted 2.5 years, close to 3 years, if I recall correctly, that case. So it can happen. People can survive. But I will tell you, as an investigator, with every day that ticks by, it's every day I have more fear that we're not going to find him alive. Yeah. I'll say it like that.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for being on. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully this answers a lot of burning questions that a lot of us have in regards to this case. I really hope that this does not become a cold case, but you said that, this is the very beginning of this investigation, which is wild because we're so far into this investigation, but it does make me feel a little bit more comfortable that the probability of it going into a cold case is the possibility of it is very, very low right now. But as far as FBI getting involved, it looks not very likely at this moment right now. Correct?
Correct.
So again, hopefully we're just going to keep talking, keep bringing up the conversations, and hopefully keep his name out there, and we can hopefully find him as soon as possible so it doesn't become a cold case. So Jennifer, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. Everybody, please go check her out. Check out her YouTube channel, Break the Case. Okay. It's her podcast. Go check it out. And of course, you can always see her on News Nation as well. Again, thank you so much for being on, and I will talk to you very soon. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend. Thanks to your audience as well. Bye.
Of course. Bye. A big thank you to Jennifer Coffindaffer for being on. It really does mean a lot. I think it really does help when you have someone out here that knows what the heck they're talking about. They have seen it with their own two eyes, boots on the ground, so on and so forth. Maybe not boots on the ground for this particular case, but they have been involved in cases, maybe something close to like this. It does suck to hear that, yeah, when it comes to FBI getting involved, it may be a long shot. It may be a while till they're spearheading this whole thing. But I have faith. I do have faith. I have faith. And I think that's the only thing that we can hold on to. We hold on to the facts. We hold on to each other, all of us positive entities, all of us positive people out here. And we hope and pray for new updates and new evidence to come out, right? And hopefully we'll get some here very, very soon. Again, I'm going to say this, though, guys, just real quick. I ain't giving up on this kid. Ain't no way I'm giving up on Sebastian. Just y'all know. We still out here, Sebastian Strong, all day. But get ready for more information, more conversations by other professionals, etc. Because we need to have those conversations. We need to start having those conversations more than ever. Lean on facts. Lean on professionals that know their ish. Have those real conversations, but also keep this young man's face out here as much as possible in the most positive and fact-heavy way that we can. I want Team Sebastian to win by any means necessary. If he is still out there alive and kicking, I can't wait for him to come home. I'm waiting for that moment to happen. But I haven't given up on this kid. Nor will I ever give up on this kid. But I'm going to give up on the drama because it doesn't help. It's a cancer. It just eats away at you. It's nothing but negativity. When there's a lot of people out here that are trying to do good, and we need to lean on the fact that there are people out here doing good for this young man. So let's sit back. Let's see what happens. Let's get the info. Let's keep talking about it. But let's talk about the info. Real quick, yes, Sebastian Strong all day. Thank you so much. S-Dubs, Melly, thank you so much. So proud, great live. Hey, like I said, I was waiting on this interview, but then some BS was going on on the internets last night. And I'm like, man, if you even knew what I had coming, you guys would know for a fact, without a shadow of a doubt, that I have not stopped and I will not stop talking about Sebastian. Even my dogs are concurring. They're like, y'all don't even know. Yeah, y'all don't even know. All right. So I appreciate you guys for being here. Hopefully, Jennifer Coffindaffer was able to answer some of your questions. She answered some of mine. My fingers are crossed. I just want to bring this kid home. So we're going to err on the side of positivity, facts, and nothing but a whole lot of green heart emojis. Light that chat up right now with a bunch of green heart emojis for Sebastian Strong. If this is what you're here for, because you know for a fact I'm here for it, light it up. All right? Light that mug up. All right? And I appreciate you guys understanding, listening, and all that stuff. But like I said, hopefully this confirms, debunks any of these BS rumors that have been out here. All right? I'm going to continue doing what I do. Hopefully you continue doing what you do. And we're going to continue trying to find this young man. I love the green heart emojis. Let's go. Anyway, guys, that's the show. I appreciate all y'all for being here. It really does mean a lot. It really, really does. And I know for a fact, every person that's involved in this search, looking for this young man right now, appreciates all that love that's going on in the chat right now, and all the love that's going on those other platforms that are spreading nothing but good, the information, facts, and trying to keep this young man's name out here, because we are all Team Sebastian all day long. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you guys for being here. Again, please do me a favor. Hit that like button down below. That would really mean a lot. Okay? That would really, really mean a lot. Hit that like button down below. Crush it. Do not forget to hit that subscribe button. Hit that follow button as well. If you're watching on other platforms, that'd be greatly appreciated. All right? We ain't done. We ain't done yet. We still talking until we get this young boy home. All right? So hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, if you want to support the channel, by all means, you can. All right? Hit that subscribe button. Hit that join button down below. Become a member if you want to. No big deal if you don't want to. Or you can go and check out my Patreon. Patreon.com/The Pascal Show. Again, let's keep talking. Let's keep asking the right questions. And let's bring young Sebastian Rogers home. It's time to get going, guys. I appreciate all y'all. Have a safe and wonderful rest of your day. Keep being dope. Even y'all haters out there, y'all keep being dope too, because I love you too. Anyway, guys, it's time to get going. And listen to me when I say this. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. I think we forget about that from time to time. Just a quick reminder. It's time to get going. This is the Pascal Show. Bye.